everything that you imagine in front of you or above you is the form of the Guru. And so in the beginning, our relationship with the Guru is like we feel separate, But then as you become a more advanced practitioner, then you realize that this separation, when you gain realization, there's no separation, really, because your mind and the Guru's mind is the nature of mind is the same. The experience of this, of course, is slightly different. Someone with more experience of this, there's always someone with more experience of this, so you're never without a boss, So, Green Tara practice, Green Tara vowed to practice until all beings were liberated, and that she would decline the liberation. How Green Tara came about was because Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara was liberating beings, and while the Bodhisattva was liberating beings, he saw that although he'd been doing this a long time, there were still lots of beings with problems, suffering. And so he got really upset and kind of began to think that this was a bit futile, And he got so upset that he just burst into 1,000 pieces. And the 1,000 pieces became what we call 1,000-armed Chenrezig. And this 1,000-armed Chenrezig saw all the beings suffering, and 2 tears formed. And from one tear came white Tara, and from another came green Tara. And they took a commitment from the Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva to help liberate all the beings. And that their green Tara's purpose would be to help beings eliminate fear. So this is one text. This text, I think it's called the Mani Kubum. And there's another text where Tara was a princess, and at the time of Buddha Amoghasiddha, she became a bodhisattva and practiced to help 1,000 beings become liberated every day. And she was able to achieve this and soon became liberated. And her wish was that all beings make like swift progress on the path and become liberated from their fears. And so depending on which text you read, there's different versions of the origination of the practice. The first spreading of the Buddha, of Buddhism in Tibet happened because this teacher, Atisha, who was an Indian teacher, had visions of Tara, and she told him that if you go to Tibet, you'll help many people. She said, but you'll live a shorter life. And he said, how much shorter? And she said, 20 years. And so this really famous teacher who originally took Tara practice to Tibet said that it was worth losing the 20 years to be able to help the Tibetans. So the idea of fear, we continually search for a remedy for our fears outside ourselves, and the protection that we get is or can be short-lived. And many people live in fear. And this fear is like arises in our mind. It's like we experience it in our sleep, and we experience it, the fears that we have throughout our day, And all of this is coming from our mind. It's not coming from outside. And you have to understand that it's the mind that's generating it, and it's the mind that perpetuates it. But in order to kind of overcome this, then if the fear wasn't insubstantial, you wouldn't be able to change it. But it's insubstantial and it's empty, and our kind of world and what happens in it is really fluid, and the nature of like our dispositions constantly changing because we are adding to this the whole time. And so we want to kind of be able to relate to those things in a way that frees us from their effects. So because those things aren't substantial, then that's what enables the practice to work. And also when you become liberated from all this conditioning, and then there's a sense of freedom and fearlessness, because we're no longer conditioned by these limiting factors. And so we experience, if you like, external fears and internal fears. So we've just witnessed like floods and things down in England. And, you see nowadays like fires, and in India and Africa there's elephants that they're going into the crops, and people are really afraid of them. But then there's all these deadly snakes, and then you have things like Bengal tigers, I mean, for people in those countries, these things are real, And in other countries, you can just be put in prison and forgotten about, And then, of course, there's we've been broken into here, so we know what it feels like to have stuff taken, And then you can be affected by entities. So those are the kind of external things that when you practice Tara, this is what you're dealing with. They say there are 21 Taras, There are 21 Taras, and each is like dealing with a different aspect of fear. And I forgot to put this thing in. And some of them are peaceful, some of them are wrathful, some of them are semi-wrathful, and so on. And then we have internal problems, like this attachment to the idea of me. The idea that my thoughts and feelings and emotions are me. Then we have to deal with negative emotions like anger, and then we have to deal with different types of ignorance. So ignorance means like not knowing the real nature of things and not knowing our own innate nature. Being deliberately ignorant, And then the jealousy, which causes all kinds of problems for yourself and others. Then pridefulness, about how a little knowledge and you think you know a lot. And then being stingy. And having wrong views means not understanding the nature of things. And because of all those things, we suffer from delusion and doubts about many things. And so you can see that we're dealing with outer things, with external, internal stuff. And that this is something which we experience like on a daily basis, Think of how many times you experience fear about not doing something because you're afraid of what will happen. About being anxious about something. About being afraid of the reactions of people in relation to what you say to them, or